Hi there, I'm Ryan Chandler. Here's your talking points for this week. Progressives on the plains. Beto O'Rourke's drive for Texas takes him through the small towns of West Texas, and I rode shotgun for a candid conversation about his campaign. He joins us for a one-on-one interview on his efforts to win over the deep red West. And burnt out and fed up. Texas teachers are leaving by the thousands, leaving many districts scrambling to fill hundreds of positions just weeks before students return. We'll hear from local administrators and teacher advocates about the simple solution to a complex problem.
From the studios of KAMC Television in Lubbock, your local election headquarters. This is Talking Points.
Happy Sunday and thanks for joining us. Scurry County, Texas is home to just 9,489 registered voters. In 2020, Donald Trump won there by 71 points. It's one of the most conservative counties in the state, and it's a focus for Democrat Beto O'Rourke in his campaign for governor. Last week, more than 200 people packed into the Scurry County Public Library to hear Beto O'Rourke out. It's part of his 49-day, 5,600-mile drive for Texas, the latest leg of his campaign that places a deliberate emphasis on the small towns and red cities of West Texas. Whether it's in Snyder, Muleshoe, Quanah, Spearman, or Pecos, O'Rourke is not only weathering, but welcoming the skepticism of rural Texans, many of whom in Scurry County showed up in MAGA hats and Trump flags.
What are you going to do to secure our southern border?
If you're a Christian, do you believe in abortion?
And you're trying to take my freedom away and give it to somebody that has the authority to turn me in without cause under your red flag.
Are you for or against the illegal aliens voting in our general elections?
It's very standing out to us that you're going to come and take our guns. If a gun is legally registered, are you going to do that?
So you hear the topics on the top of their minds. It's guns, abortion, and the border. And Beto says those topics are certainly important to talk about, but his message in West Texas focuses on issues that you hear less about, certainly from the Abbott campaign. It's about the issues that he sees as uniquely impactful for rural Texas, about expanding broadband in areas where some Texans are cut off, attacking Governor Abbott for vetoing a revamp of the Universal Service Fund, which subsidizes rural phone service and provides internet to more than 1 million rural Texans. It's about expanding Medicaid to prop up the many rural hospitals that have been shuttered, and about including Texas Tech in the Permanent University Fund and caring for rural veterans who are often many more miles away from care than those in the big cities. Still, there may not be many consultants who would advise Beto to spend his valuable time in a town where there's not much more than 8,000 reliably red votes. So on the drive from Snyder to Lubbock, I took the passenger seat to talk candidly about this campaign. Beto argues that this strategy of talking to everyone, everywhere, sets him apart from Governor Abbott, and he made a confident prediction for how it will pay off for him.
He's taking rural Texas for granted. So not only is he not going to run up the score in rural Texas, I think he's in for a big surprise on election night when we do better than any Democrat's done in rural Texas in decades. This part of Texas has been taken for granted by Greg Abbott. We're not making that mistake, and we're showing up for everyone, everywhere. So we're going to win more votes than any Democrat has ever won.
Now, to be sure, Governor Abbott did push back on that argument. Perhaps not by coincidence, he actually reached out to our station for an interview on the day that Beto hosted a crowd of 1,000 supporters in Lubbock. Here's what he said about his time in West Texas.
I'm in West Texas a lot myself. Most recently, proudly, I was up there in Amarillo for the grand opening of the new vet school that we had approved that's connected to Texas Tech. And so you're going to see a whole lot of me between now and the election time.
Now, it is true that Governor Abbott has been to Lubbock at least 3 times in the last year. Also, interestingly, his answer there was in response to our question not only about O'Rourke's West Texas campaign, but also about whether he will debate O'Rourke this fall. He simply did not acknowledge the debate question. But for a deeper conversation, I sat down with Beto O'Rourke for a one-on-one talk after his Lubbock rally, where he set a new record for attendance in this city. We spoke about the momentum that he's seeing here, his reaction to Lubbock Representative Dustin Burrows' work in Uvalde, and what he learns from West Texas. Every time I've seen you here, the rallies have gotten bigger, and that's just been in the last 6 months. Do you worry about whether you'll be able to keep that up? You know, it's great to see this, but we are in July with so many months to go. Are you thinking you're just going to have to keep coming back and back? What's your strategy going from now until November?
I feel stronger and stronger every day of this campaign, every time we come back to Lubbock. And that strength comes from the people who joined this effort. 1,000 people here tonight, not every one of them was a Democrat. A lot of people came up in the photo line and said, hey, I'm a Republican, never voted for a Democrat before, but the fact that you're supporting public school education, or that you want to make sure that we do something about the permanent university fund so that Texas Tech gets its fair share of the resources that originated here in West Texas. You're doing things that matter for my community, and I'm for you. And that's the way we're going to win this election. We've got to win it through hard work, by showing up and listening to and following the lead of local leaders like those who came out here in Lubbock today.
Yeah, our leaders here in Lubbock have been in front of the entire state recently. Our state representative, Dustin Burrows, as you know, is also the chairman of the Uvalde investigation for the Texas House. We just spoke to him about their preliminary report. First, I'd be interested to hear, what do you make of their findings for what went so wrong in Uvalde?
I'm grateful to Representative Burrows and the other members who have made it their mission to understand what happened, to ensure that there is accountability, transparency, and ultimately justice for these families in Uvalde. To a person, those families that I've met with when I've been down in Uvalde, they just want to know what happened to their kids, in some cases to their siblings, to their parents, those who were teachers. They want to know why law enforcement didn't intervene when they could have. They want to know why they're finding out about things in the press instead of from those in positions of power and public trust. And they also want action and change. They want to make sure this doesn't happen to another family or to another school or to another community. And they're literally leading the effort. They led a march, they led a rally in Uvalde with hundreds of residents from that town. I'm so proud of the way that they are meeting this challenge that they've faced in their lives and trying to do their best to make sure that no one else has to go through it. I hope that we can work together, Democrats and Republicans, to make sure that we honor what they've asked us to do and ensure that no family has to go through this again.
When we asked Representative Burrows what this report implies for policy going forward in the next session, he was adamant in saying now is not the time for that discussion. We are finding the facts still, and that policy conversation will come after. You famously, though, came out days after the shooting and said, no, the time for the policy conversation was actually before this tragedy.
It is insane that we allow an 18-year-old to go in and buy an AR-15. What the hell did we think he was going to do with that?
In your conversation with these family members, what kind of change are they asking for, and what do you think, not is ideal for you, but what do you think is realistically going to get done if you are governor with two Republican-controlled chambers?
The time to stop the next mass shooting is right now. And the way to do it is right in front of us. And it's not an idea that came from Democrats or from Republicans. It's something that gun owners, non-gun owners, everyday Texans can get behind. A universal background check where anybody who buys a firearm has to go through some kind of review so we can make sure they're not going to harm themselves or someone else. A red flag law so that we can intervene when someone who has a firearm is threatening to shoot up their school or to kill a coworker or to harm somebody in their household. These are things that we can all get behind. Raising the minimum age of purchase for an AR-15 or AK-47 to 21, that just makes all the common sense in the world. And again, this is something that I hear Republicans and Democrats alike across the state, including right here in Lubbock, agreeing on. So listen, there are a lot of things that we have to hash out and work on,
But we know this much, that we've got to take action. The steps that will save lives are right in front of us. There's no time like now to get it done. And I look forward to working with Representative Burrows and really anyone, anytime, anywhere to make sure that we defend the Second Amendment while protecting the lives of our fellow Texans.
You are right that Democrats and Republicans, at least among common Texans and not elected representatives, are overwhelmingly in favor of all of the things that you mentioned. In polling that we saw just last month, an overwhelming majority of people say that. But there seems to be a disconnect between what polls say people want and what their representatives are getting done in the House and in the Senate. Why do you think that gap is so wide? You discuss voting reform, things like that. Is that connected? How do we close that gap?
I'm confident that when we win an election like the governor's race, first time in 32 years a Democrat will win this office. It was Ann Richards in 1990 who last did it. It will send shockwaves through the system in this state. And legislators who want to keep their jobs are going to understand that they've got to honor the rights of women to make their own decisions about their own body. They have to honor the rights of kids not to be shot in their own classrooms, or teachers to have to lose their lives defending those children. They're going to have to honor public education and fully funding our schools and not trying to take money out of them through vouchers. They're going to have to do things, in other words, that most people care about if they want to keep their office, if they want to win their next election. That is why this election is so important, to make sure that we can do the things that we're campaigning on, to stop the bad things that are happening in this state, and to choose to change the political calculus that those in elected office are making. Right now, they feel like they have the luxury of ignoring the people that they represent and serve. In this room tonight, we heard, Beto, you keep coming back to Lubbock, having town hall meetings. I had one in Snyder today that you were at with 200 people, folks who were for me, folks who were against me. I took every question, all comers welcomed. They haven't seen their representatives do that. They haven't seen the governor do that. Without accountability, there's ultimately going to come consequences for those in office. It's time to listen to and represent the people that you purport to serve.
That's a good segue to my last question, which is about the people that you met today. You spent an hour or more taking pictures with who knows how many people here. And there seems to be an idea in Austin and elsewhere, not just among representatives, but everybody who lives in cities that are bigger than Lubbock in Texas, about who lives in West Texas and the kind of people that are here in Lubbock. Are there any stories, anything that you heard from the people that you met here today that surprised you about this part of the state?
When we were knocking on doors in Snyder earlier, and a veteran opened his door, and I got a chance to meet him and his wife, and he said, you're one of the only people who's ever knocked on my door. Certainly I've never had a statewide candidate show up in my community. And he said, I feel like rural Texas just gets taken for granted or written off or forgotten if anybody ever knew that we existed in the first place. It clearly meant so much to him that I wanted to listen to him and serve him. In El Paso, where I grew up and where we're raising our kids, no statewide officials ever came out and visited us, listened to us, wanted to help us out, and we really had to fight on our own a lot of times. There are so many communities out there who need someone to stand up for them and to partner with them and to work with them. And I don't know if it surprised me, but it was encouraging to me that folks are grateful that we're taking the time to be with them. I'll tell you what, Greg Abbott is sleeping on West Texas. He thinks he's got it in the bank. He doesn't have to show up here. He doesn't have to answer these questions. He doesn't have to work for these people. He doesn't have to do the things that they want him to do, address the issues that they want him to address. We're here fighting for these folks. That's why we're going to win out here. That's why we're going to win this race. That's why as governor, we're going to be here to deliver for the people of Lubbock and West Texas and these communities that have been so long forgotten and taken for granted.
All right, Beto O'Rourke, thank you so much for talking with us.
Yeah.
Our thanks to Beto for his time, and when we come back, a closer look at the statewide teacher shortage and the problem that it's creating for our districts here at home, why it's happening, and what we can do about it.